Thank you very much, Annabelle.
Thank you so much. Welcome, everyone. We are here to talk about art and community connection. We're very happy to be sharing this topic with you as we're talking about social isolation and community connection from so many different perspectives. So my name is Anabella Alfonzo. I'm an art consultant with a background in architecture and design, and I'm the founder of AARTPLACE, an art consulting studio here in Vancouver, where we help facilitate the process of incorporating art into public spaces and private spaces with a variety of clients. Here with me, I have 5 wonderful panelists that will all seemingly come from very different places, different backgrounds, but at the same time, we all share one same thing, and it's that they're all making a positive impact in our society and in our community through art. So we have Andrea Curtis, Executive Director of the Vancouver Mural Festival. We have John Stovell, President and CEO of Reliance Properties. Jessica Dizon, Community Marketing Coordinator of Herschel, Vancouver. Pamela Saunders, Director of Communications and Engagement at Microsoft Vancouver, and Pollock, our curator from the Collective Agency Project. So welcome, panelists. Happy to be here with all of you. Many people talk about the function of art, and it, of course, leads to a lot of philosophical discussions and broader conversations, but the one that we're going to talk about here today is that function of acting as a bridge between different people from social backgrounds or different religious beliefs, like artist Marina Abramovic says in this quote so well. So again, on the topic of social isolation, you may be wondering, why art? Why are we talking about art? And it's exactly because art creates connections. And we're gonna walk you through a little bit of how is this even possible? So art creates connection on an individual level when you're appreciating a work of art. It can also create connections by interacting with it in different ways. It also creates connections between 2 people or between groups of people through public art in public spaces, and ultimately contributes to creating a sense of community and a sense of belonging. So this sense of connection leads to, again, sense of belonging, which creates motivation and a sense of purpose, which contributes to a sense of community and a sense of place. So this is something I want to tell you a little bit more about. When we talk about sense of place, we think about the concept of placemaking, which is a concept that comes from urban design and urban studies. And I like the way our friends from the Downtown Vancouver Business Association defines it. They say it in very simple words. Basically, they define it as a people-centered approach to improving public spaces. So in other words, it's creating or designing or shaping a space in ways that invite people. So by doing this, through art, we start to create stronger connections between people and the places we inhabit. We make our cities and our public spaces more inviting, more safe, more inclusive, and that contributes to community connections. So with this, I want to get you to start thinking about, in your own teams and in your own journey through the brand Bottle for Good, how can you use art to create awareness? How can you use art to activate spaces? How can you use art to bring people together? Many brands and organizations around the world are recognizing and leveraging the power of art as a tool for engagement, identity, cultural strengthening, and well-being. right here in our backyard, we have amazing people doing an amazing job in this. And we have 5 people here that are going to tell us a little bit about their own experience with this, their own experience creating this meaningful impact through art. And I want to start kind of macro to micro thinking, because we were talking about placemaking, thinking about our city at large. And I want to start with Andrea Curtis from the Vancouver Mural Festival. So Andrea, many people may not be familiar with the Vancouver Mural Festival, although I think a lot of people are. You guys are creating an amazing impact in the city already. I want you to tell everyone a little bit about how can art make our cities more connected? And at this point, Andrea, can you tell us whether you prefer I do your slides or whether you want to do your slides?
You can do the slides. There's just 6. I don't mind.
Okay, I'll keep going then.
Okay, thank you.
You tell me.
Yeah, and I will. Okay, should I start then?
Yeah, go ahead.
Great. Well, thank you so much, Anabella, for hosting us. And of course, so this event, for coming together and share this inspiration. I am going to talk to you a little bit about how we can make our cities a little bit more connected. And before I jump in, like Anabella said, I'm Andrea Curtis. I'm the executive director and co-founder of Vancouver Mural Festival. We call ourselves VMF these days because our annual summer festival has been running for 7 years. We've completed over 350 murals in the region, but we also started VMF Winter Arts during the pandemic. It's going into its 3rd year now in February, and we run an agency year-round. So Ashley just shared a little bit about vulnerability, and I want to take inspiration from that while I jump into this quick inspiration share. The theme I want to work on is how we create a more connected city using an invitation and creating an invitation. That's sort of my theme word. And I think creating an invitation, there's a vulnerability in that. Hoping people will come, hoping people will like what you do. And as Anabella clicks through these slides, they don't have a particular order. I just wanted to show some before and afters of what it looks like when we reimagine these spaces. So art often feels like the extra thing. It always feels like the bonus, or there's no money for it. It feels like it's the first thing to get cut in federal or civic budgets. It feels like something I have to make a case for and fight for quite a lot. But what we get out of this when we invest in public art is a place to be, a place that we want to be, a place that feels inspirational and representational of who we are. It's a place to be seen. It's a place to gather and be represented. When you see the before picture here on the side of Canada Place, this painting by Ocean Highland, you don't get a sense that our values are represented, thinking about, Squamish, Musqueam, and Tsleil-Waututh people in the Coast Salish identity of this place. But when you see the art on it, you get a sense of who we are and what we value. You want to stand there, you want to take a photo, you want to have a selfie, and it becomes a great backdrop for an event, a mural festival, or any festival at all. So a project for us that really has hit on a lot of those pieces was the Blanketing the City project. And feel free to keep going, Anabella, with the slides. We saw a slide of that earlier, the Coast Salish weaving designs with the Catholic Church in the background. We were creating that space under the leadership of 3 leaders, matriarchs from the Musqueam, Squamish, and Tsleil-Waututh nations, led by Deborah Sparrow. And the transformation of those of that space, thanks. Was an incredible moment, because while that was being painted, the news of the children that were found at the Kamloops Residential School was unveiled, and the 3 nations had a place to gather in that moment and a place to be proud of the work and the resilience of their communities. So it's a place to be vulnerable and a place to mourn together too. So if we click through to the last few slides, I know I already only have a couple of minutes left. What I really want to share with is, a few things that I've learned over the years is that, number one, in order to create the invitation and transform a space and invite people in to celebrate, to see themselves represented, we have to work really hard. We have to work hard for it, for connection and for art and for placemaking. It doesn't come easily. And we have to work together as a community to do it. This means we need to fund these things. We don't get much funding from the city of Vancouver, if at all, for some of these projects. And so much of the funding, $3 million just in artist fees over the last few years, comes almost explicitly from private funding. And so we're extremely grateful for that. I think that it's been really important for us to dream big only, even if we have to start small. The dreams have to be big, the ideas have to be big, because if we're going to make a transformation at the size we want. We know Vancouver Foundation has been talking about and studying the isolation issue in Vancouver for a very long time. And here we are still talking about it. And so if we're going to make that transformation, the dreams and the ideas have to be big. And finally, I mean, I have this written on my wall. These are 3 of the values that we hold for our organization is 1, always seek collaboration, 2, design for accessibility, and 3, approach with curiosity. So the other murals that we saw there, with the one downtown was Rachel Wada and Shiloh at 1062 Granville Street. And then the final one here, I hope everybody's had a chance to visit. And if you haven't, the site is open to the public 24/7. This is the Transform City Center Motel, painted by Casey Hall, June Lee, and Fiona Ackerman. And it's been transformed into 75 artist work studios that were formerly motel rooms. So everybody has their own bathroom, and everyone's paying only between $500 and $650 a month rent, which is unheard of in this city. So on that, so much of the spaces we call public are actually private spaces, and privately owned, but publicly accessible. And I think that actually is a great segue into what John can speak to us on, because so much of the leadership that's coming to us in terms of creating placemaking, art in public, is the leadership that's coming to us from the private sector. So with that, over to you, John. Thank you.
Thank you, Andrea. This is great. This is a great segue to John. I don't even have to say anything. John, you can go ahead and tell us a little bit about how did Reliance get into supporting the arts and promoting these collaborations that Andrea was talking about?
Yeah, I think thanks, Anabella. And, first of the overarching theme of the conference, I mean, it's palpably obvious to us that creation of arts, either in private spaces shared by people or public spaces, always helps with isolation and bridges connections. So that to us is a given. In terms of how we got into it, it was, we have a creative background in the company, architecture, musicians. So I'm a musician. One of our key people is an architect, but more so, we really got drawn into it when a number of years ago in the late 70s, early 80s, the city of Vancouver had artists living in unsafe and illegally living in unsafe artist studio buildings, kind of like Soho. And they came up with a very interesting program because they realized these artists were at personal risk of fire, accidents in these buildings, that if we could avoid having to do the seismic upgrades, but would do the fire life safety upgrades, we would be able to convert these buildings in these industrial areas that didn't otherwise permit residential into live work buildings. And Anabella, maybe just flip through the 3 buildings. So in the subsequent years, we've created 3 separate major artist studio buildings with close to 200 artist studios. And these are live work studios where you really need to be an artist to be part of the community. And in addition to having a live work studio, you also have very significant shared amenities in these projects, like kiln rooms, dark rooms, music rooms, dance rooms, metalworking, woodworking shop. And those are shared amenities which reduce the cost for artists to live and work and practice their craft, but they also bring people together. Annabelle, maybe you could just go to the pink alley slide. That's big money. Those are big, expensive projects, but it's remarkable to us how sometimes very, very small gestures that basically cost us nothing, but require our corporate involvement, can stimulate amazing things. This is the pink alley in downtown Vancouver. All we had to do was let the downtown BIA paint our walls, pink, mount some basketball hoops, and the city of Vancouver let them paint the pavement. And this became one of the most significant public art spaces in the whole city, all these sort of flash mob events, Korean K-pop videos, basketball events, art installation events. And it cost us nothing. We just had to say yes. Can you go to the next slide? More traditionally, we contribute to arts by making philanthropic contributions. We gave $7 million to the Emily Carr University of Art and Design, and further within that, got behind their permanent Libby Leschkohl Gallery, which is there to provide world-class art and stimulate and engage the students into high achievement in arts. And we also sponsor the Reliance Theater, which is, fostering sharing of ideas and performances. And that was a $7 million largest ever corporate contribution to a private arts institution, arts school. Next slide. Another channel in real estate is for public art, where when we do large scale rezoning projects, the city has a mandatory program to a certain dollars per square foot that you must provide public art, either by giving them money or putting public art on your own site, which we always prefer. This is my favorite thing the city makes us pay for. In fact, it's one of the only things I like that they make us pay for. We love to do public art. This is a 36-story downtown where we have a Dutch lighting artist who created a dynamic art feature on our building. Next slide. This is a project we just finished at AARTPLACE. We have an artist from Sweden. This is called the wheel of everyday life, and this has just been completed. Some of you may have seen some media about it, where we're fighting with the city because they want to put a big bike share station right in front of it, cover it all up. So that's the kind of method of doing public art through, the rezoning and the formal process of the city of Vancouver, which we're huge supporters of. Next slide. Other things we do is retrospectives. We are owners of the Arthur Erickson Place building at 1075 West Georgia. Arthur Erickson, one of the most favorite and brilliant architects and artists from our past. And we renamed this asset recently Arthur Erickson Place, and we created a video retrospective, both abstract and historical, of his work, and projected it on the side of the building with a large outdoor event to celebrate his legacy. Next slide. There's the picture of him projected on the building. Next slide. This is one of my favorite ones. We talked about our artist studios in Vancouver, where people live and work, but just making space for art and making use of things that aren't doing. We have an empty building in Victoria that is waiting for redevelopment. It was an old government office that had about 85 offices in it. And we leased it to a artist collaborative called Rock Slide Studios. And in a period of 6 months, that guy has put 85 independent artists into this building in those individual rooms, and then populated the entire common areas with art. There was an event there last weekend that had 1,700 people go through the studio open that day. That's 20 people per studio. That's the third time they've done that. And that cost us nothing. All we had to do was rent it. A building was sitting empty to this person for a very minor, just basically property taxes. And it's just a remarkable outcome. Next slide. In Victoria also, this is real placemaking and community buildings with arts. This is the Arts and Innovation District in Victoria. It's an area identified to create collider culture between different uses, including arts and culture, technology, marine related industry, and residential and live work. And so we have a 7-acre property in this parcel, and we're currently developing that. Next slide. And this is some of the ethos that goes into it of colliding these different uses. Next slide. And we are going to put on that site a live work building like the ones that I showed you just at the beginning, with artist live work within building amenities. We're going to move the Art Gallery Greater Victoria to the site from up in the suburbs of Victoria, and we're going to create residential and other general employment uses on the site to create this kind of collider culture of bringing those things together. Next slide. Yeah, and that's it. So it's just, I guess in summary, I'd say it's very, real estate is a powerful economic engine. It's very easy to, almost a rounding error, to divert a bit of capital and a bit of space to arts and culture, and has a disproportionately positive effect relative to the amount of money or committed assets. It has a very high return on investment in terms of creating interesting and dynamic real estate space.
Thank you, John. Thank you. Yeah, this is great to see all of these different kind of ways that art can make our city feel more connected. And from going to a city scale, I want to start moving into more like our more human scale. And in this, I'm going to bring Jessica into the spotlight right now from Herschel. I actually found that we were all more connected than I thought when I started putting this group together. For example, I learned recently that Herschel sponsored the Vancouver Mural Fest tours this year. So we're all helping each other here. And that actually led me to discover all of these art initiatives that Herschel is involved in. I had no idea, to be honest, before knowing Jessica, that Herschel was doing all of these things. And I want everyone to know about this now. So Jessica, why don't you tell us a little bit more about all of these art initiatives that Herschel is doing, and particularly how you are using your brick and mortar space to activate or create community?
Yeah, totally. Hi, everyone. So happy to be here with all of you today. As Anabella mentioned, I'm Jessica. I'm the community coordinator at Herschel Supply. It was really great to be able to sponsor the walking tours this year. We had a really fun event at the store where we had a speaker series with two really amazing curators. So we had Jonas Jones and Keiko Hart in the space. So when we're talking about community and art and isolation and community is quite new to Herschel Supply, and it's a large focus for us this year. And as Anabella mentioned, we really want to transform our brick and mortar spaces into community hubs. So we want artists to use these spaces. We want to bring everyone together for workshops. So a few programs that we've rolled out this year is, like, for one, the Artist in Residence program in partnership with Emily Carr. So we basically rotate an artist every quarter, and we do a call out at the university, and then we'll select candidates with our team and with Emily Carr, and that artist gets to be in there for a few months. So we have something called the Infinity Room. If you've ever stopped by Herschel Supply Gastown, it's this beautiful space, and it's right in the middle of the store, and it's kind of like a cube with a LED screen up on the ceiling, and the artist gets $4,000 as a scholarship, and it's up to them to kind of decide what they're going to design in the space. So if you look at the photos here, our latest artist is Carl Mata Hiphol. So he pulled a lot of his inspiration from indigenous work in, like, the Philippines, which was really cool to see. So it's still up there for a few more a few more weeks, and then we're going to rotate to different artists. So our next call out was for a BIPOC artist. We also do a lot of artist workshops. So basically we close the space and we bring an artist in, and it's up to them how they want to roll out a workshop, and they come to us with so many ideas. We're always all ears, and we're open to however they want to use a space. So we partnered up with Art from the Heart, which is a local organization that does, like, paint nights in the park. We've done some sculpting workshops. We did a really lovely upcycling workshop with Kristen Mann. So on the far right here, we used a bunch of scrap materials from our sewing room, brought that into the space, and people were able to create whatever they wanted to. We've also done, like, a lot of artist customization in store. So we'll bring in an artist during store opening hours, and they will kind of turn our bags into whatever they want, and guests get to come in, and it's kind of like a gift with purchase, and they'll get to go home with a little piece of art from that artist. And it's a really great way to, be a voice for them. And at the end of the day, we really want to be a champion for creatives and bring people together who are like-minded. And then something that we're going to be launching early next year is our ambassador program. So basically, we want to bring in artists who are very like-minded to us, and kind of get them to use a space however they want, whether it's through workshop, customization in store. They get to kind of choose what they want to do, which is really great. And they partner up with us. And again, like, Herschel is going to act as a platform for these artists. So we want to get their voice out there and use our social channels to really amplify them. And then we launched our speaker series this year. So next slide, Annabella. Yeah, so with our speaker series, so on the left there, you can see Keiko, Hart, and Jonas Jones. So that was with VMF. And then we usually just, the topics really vary, and it's more of an informational session for artists to come and share their experiences, or creatives, and really try to help out the community. So oftentimes we'll have guests coming in and they're like, oh, that was so informational. I was able to connect with X artists, and now I know how to solve X problem. So it's really about networking and problem solving and helping to lift each other up. And it's been really amazing to be able to do these speaker series and bring everyone together. And two large initiatives that we actually launched this year is the Nova Art Project. And you can look online a little bit more about that. But with the Nova Art Project, our backpack basically becomes a canvas for women in the arts, and we celebrate them by partnering with different female artists of diverse backgrounds, and they transform our backpack. They get to be involved in the whole design process, and we sell this backpack for a limited run. And then for our third installment, we just partnered up with an artist, Hen Kim, that just recently came out. And then the second big initiative that we did was the Herschel Workshop Design Challenge. So this was to introduce a new generation of design thinkers to pursue creative careers. And it was a design challenge for youth ages 15 and up across Canada and the United States. And then so the top 20 finalists were awarded a 5-week design mentorship, where we flew everyone out to work with our design team and really get them off the ground. And then we partnered up with the National Art Education Association for that, which was really cool. And then there was one more slide. So we also partnered up with So Far Sounds this year. So really more expanding into the music industry. So this is where our space becomes a concert venue, which has been really, really fun. And usually we have 3 local musicians rotating 20-minute sets each. And yeah, it's been really great. So, just to kind of wrap it all up, community has been a really big focus for our founders. And like I said, we do want to be a champion for creatives, and moving forward with all the store designs. We're opening up probably 10 to 15 more stores next year. Community is top of mind. So they're building spaces with the intention of bringing community in and hosting workshops and really expanding on that.
That's amazing, Jessica, so much. I really am impressed every time I hear you talk about these things. It's amazing. And I love how all of these things that you may think are not related end up creating these new relationships and these new connections. To think that scrap fabrics from backpacks in Vancouver can help tell the story of Indigenous Filipino history, right? It's really amazing. I love those unexpected connections and collaborations. So next up, we are going to hear from Pamela Saunders from Microsoft Vancouver. And this is another example of an unexpected kind of relationship created between different things. Technology is something that is not always, more and more these days, but it's not that you're obvious kind of think, okay, how is technology going to help us create more community and create more how can technology make art? What is the connection there? So this led me to ask Pam to tell us today a little bit about how, or better actually, can technology change the way we experience art? Can you tell us a little bit about that, Pam?
Yeah, for sure. And thanks for having us. We're also proud partners of VMF and just installed a new mural in our office, which I don't have a picture of, but if you go to our Instagram channel, you can see it. It's amazing. They connected us with Corey Douglas from the Squamish Nation, and everybody's commenting on it when they come into work. But yeah, can technology change the way we experience art? I hate to put that much pressure on technology. I would say it doesn't change the way we experience art necessarily, but I do believe it creates new opportunities for artists to express themselves. And if you read enough tech news, which I do, there's a variety of projects marking the intersection between software, hardware, and art. And it's something that we kind of stepped into back in 2017 when we launched an artist in residence project called Transformation Mask. So anyone who's sort of familiar with our campus here in Vancouver, we actually have an embedded makerspace called The Garage, where employees are invited to experiment and learn new skills. They could be tech-based or otherwise, and it's everything from needles and threads to CNC machines. And so there was an opportunity for us to do something with an artist, and we were connected to Hiltzik carver and painter Sean Hunt with the goal of creating something. We didn't really know what, that would be both an opportunity for him to experiment in his practice and also something that he could use to inspire the next generation of Indigenous artists. So if you go to the next slide, so this is the team we assembled, and they're a range of, technical designers, software engineers, we had sound engineers. It was like a really diverse group of people. To go to the next slide. This is the garage. So if you haven't been in our space or seen it, it's an absolute mayhem space. And this was a group of students that we had. So kind of the best picture that it showed how complex the space is. And you can go to the next slide. And this is Sean. So this is a terrible picture of Sean, but one that we took with a phone on his first visit when he came into the garage. It was an opportunity for him to come in and explore different types of technology and sort of figure out what this was going to be. He kind of had an idea in his mind that he would come in, meet the team, and then give them direction, and they would execute what he had in mind. But over the course of several weeks, it really became a collaboration where they navigated the creation together. So, we started off kind of talking about holographics because that's what we were super interested in. So that's what this photo is like, hey, this is what it could be. But we quickly sort of landed on a couple of different technologies. So if you go to the next slide, this will show where we started. So this is how we started. Sean built us a cardboard model and covered it in electrical tape and delivered it to the office. And it was like, this is the vision of what Transformation Mask was going to be. And then you can advance. And from there, our technical artist built a 3D model. So we started to kind of create the shape of it. But because Sean was located on the Sunshine Coast and we're here in downtown Vancouver, we ended up passing things back and forth by email. So if you go to the next slide, what would happen is we would do something, send it to him, and then he would comment on it. And that was sort of how we collaborated. If you go to the next slide. This is the physical build. And I included these because I thought if you haven't seen the mask, it's kind of hard to envision what it looks like. So this was the 3D printing pieces, the electronics inside. We did 300 hours of 3D printing on this. And because of the timeline that we were on, we actually had people were driving into the office at 3 a.m. to flip to, new pieces on the 3D printer. So quite a complicated physical build. And then the next slide. And then there's a holographic piece. So we used HoloLens, but in order for Sean to be able to create something for that, we actually put him in a VR rig and had him paint in 3D and then work with an artist to animate that 3D painting to give us the holographic experience that people get when they put on the mask. So we go to the next slide. He'd come in once a week and work with us. And then during the week, we would throw things back and forth by email. So he'd come in and look at the progress, work with the team. So this is just a variety of pictures of the team trying out different things. My favorite one is all of them in HoloLenses. I don't know what they were looking at out the window, but I just love the shot. And then the next slide. And then this is sort of what it looked like when we finished it. He wrote an artist statement for it, talking about what the raven means to him. And then we had the opportunity to actually exhibit it. So during the process of the build, we got invited to bring this to the Vancouver Art Gallery as part of Fuse. So if you go to the next slide, it's us installing it. So this was sort of what it looked like when we had it installed. And those, the black plinth at the back there is where the holographic experience would land, so that it wasn't just floating in space. Super cool experience because it did allow us to get in front of so many people with the mask. And then from there, we had a lot of invites to come and exhibit in other places. So if you go to the next slide. We sent it to the O'Dane for a month, and that was an opportunity to exhibit alongside on the wall. There is a traditional wood carved transformation mask. And then if you go to the next slide, this is at SIGGRAPH. So SIGGRAPH comes to town for animators, video game, lots of creative people, super non-traditional place to bring a piece of art like this. And we were just swarmed with people who wanted to try it. And then the next slide. And then most profoundly, it was being able to take it to the Museum of Anthropology. Like the O'Dane, it was the opportunity to exhibit alongside other Indigenous art. And that's Sean in the mask there. So a really, really great opportunity. And I think if you go to the next, I think I had one more slide. Yeah, if you want to learn more about the mask, we actually produced a video because it's an opportunity for Sean to talk about it in his own words, with music by his brother Dean in the background. So check it out.
That's awesome. I'm pasting the link in the group. This is amazing, Pam. I'm honestly really impressed when I see these things, because to me, technology can either bring us together or set us apart, in many ways. And I feel like this is a very successful example of how technology can actually not only bring us together, but actually kind of help spread the knowledge and make information and culture more accessible to so many people that otherwise it wouldn't have been accessible to. So thank you for sharing this with us.
Yeah, it definitely was. And I think the visitors who came and engaged with it, it was an opportunity to see Indigenous art and culture in a much different way. We're used to seeing masks, used in ceremony or as sort of artifacts in a museum, and watching people put their face into the mask and see Sean's holographic painting, actually interact with Indigenous art. I think it really opened up opportunities and the way that they thought about these art pieces.
Amazing. Thank you. Thank you so much. So next up, after seeing, the Vancouver Mural Festival, a development company, Herschel Supply, Microsoft, we're going to now experience or witness the experience of a senior group that got together they just signed up to a photography workshop without knowing, the impact that this was going to have, not only in their lives, but actually in the broader city and community. So we have Anne Pollock here, the curator that led that initiative together with the city of Vancouver and 2 other artists. And Anne, I will just throw it straight to you and let us tell you everything about the collective agency project.
Oh, thank you. And
let me know if you want me to let you share. Do you want to share? I'll share.
Well, let's try it this way, and I'll just call out next when we want another slide. How's that sound?
Yes, that's perfect. Okay.
So what is the collective agency project? Well, it was and is a public art project of the city of Vancouver, and it's a project of many elements, but first and foremost, it's an art project. But in making art, how did it also overcome isolation? And what was the industry support that made this happen? Next. The industry support was crucial. It came from Opal by Element, which is a new seniors development, and developments have a public art levy on public art funds. And in this case, they were persuaded to move their art funds into the wider community for a curated project. And it was with the wish to involve and benefit seniors in the wider community. So a much wider range of effect. And then also coming on board, the Parks Board made the Hillcrest Center available as a working venue. Next. And it's a project about giving voice, giving agency. Seniors are often overlooked when thinking about any kind of project these days. It's a group that's often relegated to the fringes of society, and this was a project that was deemed to make them heard. Next, please. How did we do this? Well, as mentioned, we formed a group through an open call put out by the City of Vancouver, Public Art and Parks and Recreation. And it was a pretty straightforward proposal, yet it had complex layers. The seniors were invited to join a 2-year project that taught them about photography as an art practice. And the aim was that in the end, we would get work at the level of an exhibition and a public art legacy. And as mentioned, I was the curator, and our artists were Christos Dikiakos and Birta Piontek. And the aim was to turn art into an agent of change. Next. How did it overcome isolation? It was an open call, so it brought elders from the community together. The workshops formed feelings of community, plus it enhanced skills, which gave a sense of possibility. Our intention was to give voice without patronizing, and we found the seniors took this opportunity and ran with it. We started workshops in February 2020, and then we were hit with COVID, and we had to scramble. We carried on via Zoom, and in the end, the seniors credited this as their lifeline through COVID. And via Zoom, we linked them to many things: each other, youth, students at Emily Carr, additional artists through guest lectures. We made it a safe environment so they could express themselves and share thoughts, and they had to produce work and show it in crits. And through this time, the work kept improving, and gradually they began to claim their voices as artists. Next. This is just a quick shot of some of the Zoom workshops. Next. There was a rich outcome. Next, please. We were invited to be part of the Capture Photography Festival this year. We were a special participant. We had 4 pages in their catalog, and this shows some of the images that were in the catalog and also in a special exhibition that we had. Next. It was a project that gave high visibility. For 2 months, we took over digital signage all throughout downtown Vancouver. The one in the image in the rain is just on the plaza at the Vancouver Art Gallery, but it was all over the city at high-profile sites. And that's some of the images. Next. And some more. All of these are images they produced. And next. We also were able to produce work at a professional level in the end. And there was a big exhibition at one of the main venues in the city, the Pendulum Gallery. There was a big opening, and the exhibition ended up having a very high attendance. Next. We also have a legacy, which was a panoramic window installation at the Hillcrest Center. It was based on the seniors' concept. We shot it on site at Queen Elizabeth Park. It's really big. It's over 35 feet long, and it will be up for quite a long time. Next. This gives you a sense of the sweep of it. It involved certain things the senior wanted in it, which included some play with fantasy and mythology. And the community center and the public that have seen it really love it. It's had huge feedback. Next. But this project also is continuing, and the giving voice continues. Out of it, could we go back, Annabelle? Out of it is an art film that's being made by a major filmmaker, Harry Killis. It'll be about a half-hour film, and it will launch in 2023. These are some filming images that were shot at the lab that printed the images for the exhibition. And then next, thanks. And there is much, much more. The project continues to grow, and the effects keep increasing like ripples out from a pond. There's been lasting friendships formed among the seniors, and there isn't a collective agency Instagram account that they run. There's going to be a launch this fall for the photo mural and a poster printed handout. There's an exhibition right now at the Hillcrest Center, and Hillcrest has invited the seniors to keep showing new work. The majority of the group are continuing to meet and make work. We're going to have a website launch soon with images from the film and other things. And some seniors are making work that they want to place in care homes. And Opal by Element, the industry sponsor, is very proud of giving their support to this project. So thank you.
Thank you, Anne. I love how it created all of these connections, not just amongst the group, but also intergenerationally with the students at Emily Carr, connecting youth and seniors. And then the fact that it became public art and it was in the city just created this kind of like broader connection to Vancouver, like itself, to the city and the community, which
Yeah,
I think it's really...
And it really gave a lot of the seniors' voice. Some of them really feel now they will go on and practice as artists as well. So
Wow,
they went from thinking they didn't have voice to having a lot of voice.
Yeah, so empowering. This is so inspiring for everyone. So we only have a few minutes left, and I want to leave time for Q&A. I think it's incredible to have these different examples of how actual, tangible brands and people in the city are successfully creating these community connections through art, from murals connecting a city to developments connecting public spaces and supporting the arts, to a backpack and apparel company activating retail spaces and creative collaborations, technology promoting inclusivity and making culture more accessible, and a seniors photography group turn it into belonging and intergenerational connections. So I hope these are inspiring examples for all the teams participating in the Brand Battle for Good to, not only generate an idea, but see how it can be executed and have an impact in our city. So think about how you guys can use this and inspire or get inspired by these examples to make some positive change. And with this, I just want to thank all of our panelists and open it up to Q&A. We have a few minutes. We have 5 minutes, I think. So go ahead.
Hi, John. It's Steve DiPasquale from HCMA here. I was really inspired by the narrative you were giving about, for you, I loved what you said about how something that was akin to a rounding error in your calculations could make for a disproportionately high positive impact in real estate. Do you think there's appetite in the development community to do these sorts of things? I mean, is Reliance really an outlier here, or is there that much enthusiasm, do you think, across the board? I think just seemed to me that there was a lot of potential there from what you talked about, how much enthusiasm there is in your organization for this.
I think it's fortuitous that the city, most large projects in the city are rezonings, and if you do a rezoning, you have to do public art, and
right.
That's, I think, having this benefit of educating developers through the process that they get benefits that they might not have initially understood. So it's sort of, to me, it's kind of a literacy issue. It's like arts impact literacy issue. And I think over time, more and more developers we'll find are willing, and there are many others who do things. I would say we're definitely at the, perhaps West Bank, even more extreme
Right.
Of the spectrum there, but I expect it's just going to get better over time. And especially when, I keep telling developers that they get a lot of benefit. Like there's a lot of goodwill that comes from it. There's a lot of community support and just benefits in the way that real estate operates and functions in terms of connection and vitality. So I think it's just going to get better and better. And the public art consultant disciplines like Anabella and others around are really important catalysts to this working, because they help educate developers. And we're now on just about every development, we're doing private public art initiatives, even where there's no public art requirement.
Right. Well, I mean, I was really excited to hear about what you were talking about in Victoria, about the live work model and things like that you were helping to support. Like that's a sort of next level part of this. So it was great to hear. Thanks all for sharing that.
Yeah.
I have to say, I really like the change we're seeing in Vancouver, coming from a lot of your organizations as well as others, to push more public art. The things like the murals, public sculpture, it really helps open up these public spaces and make them feel more inviting and usable, and really gets people out and wandering around our local communities more. I really love it, and I appreciate the good work that you're all doing.
I was just going to say, it was occurring to us on the call that even amongst us, we're starting to do things together. If I could just share the screen for a second. This is a project that the Mural Festival people have just done for us. So this is a private initiative to paint a building where there was no requirement for public art to create vitality and interest in the West End, and we've done that with the Mural Festival. So it just shows that even amongst this small group, public art is already, art is already creating connections that wouldn't have otherwise been there.
Thanks for sharing that, John. And, actually just to share, VMF has not done to date any public artwork that was required through the public art initiatives, through the zoning. We hope to, we look forward to working more in 3D and other pieces, but all of the work that we're doing, and most of it is self-funded. We're going out and looking for those opportunities ourselves.
Yeah, I mean, and I hope that things like this can help it create that awareness, and that, letting people know the value and the power that art has in creating these connections and making our cities better, that you don't have to wait until it's required. You can just take the initiative and do it, and it will benefit your city, your spaces, your own brands, your own communities. It goes a long way.
All right, thank you very much. I mean, a lot of this, a lot of the art I was looking at kind of made me think of the Renaissance, the kind of ideals of the Renaissance of making a city beautiful, and it's amazing to see that passion alive and well and kind of flourishing in Vancouver. So just want to take a moment to thank our panel and